They cloned my DNA to make super soldiers. Now the alien princess wants a customer asterisk. The awakening Corporal Ace Rennick had always considered himself spectacularly ordinary. Average height, brown hair that refused to cooperate, and a knack for fixing things that shouldn't be fixable. That was his entire identity. Before the universe decided to play the cruelest joke imaginable, the morning he woke up in silk sheets instead of his usual moss-covered rock, Ace knew something had gone catastrophically wrong with his quiet hermit life on Kepler 4 to be. The room was larger than his entire crashed shuttle, decorated with crystalline formations that pulsed with bioluminescent light through floor to ceiling. Windows, 3 moons hung in an alien sky like opal jewels. Finally awake, I see. The voice belonged to a woman who looked like starlight, had decided to take human form. Princess Kalira of the Vernari Empire stood near the window, her silver blue skin shimmering with natural patterns that shifted like living tattoos. Her hair, white as fresh snow, cascaded down her back in waves that seemed to move with their own wind. Most unsettling were her eyes, violet with flecks of gold that seemed to see straight through him. "Lady, I don't know what kind of cosmic prank this is," he said, sitting up and immediately regretting it as his head spun. "But I was perfectly happy eating questionable mushrooms and talking to my pet rock, Clarence." Kalira smiled, and it was like watching a sunrise. "Your pet rock will have to manage without you. We have more pressing matters to discuss." She gestured, and a holographic display materialized between them. Ace watched in growing horror as images of soldiers who looked exactly like him filled the air. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all wearing the same face he saw in reflective surfaces. "The Alpha Cores," Kalira explained, her voice carrying the authority of someone born to rule. "Created from your DNA 12 years ago, they won the Helion Wars, saved humanity, and became legends across 17 star systems." Ace stared at his army of doppelgangers. That's my face, indeed. Your genetic material proved remarkably adaptable. Earth's scientists were quite thorough in their documentation." She waved her hand, and medical files appeared detailed. Analysis of his blood, tissue samples, even psychological profiles from his military service. "They stole my DNA," Ace's voice cracked slightly. "Acquired," Kalira corrected diplomatically. "You were listed as missing in action. They assumed you were dead. I was taking a vacation." Ace protested. "A very long, very isolated vacation." The princess moved closer, her presence somehow both comforting and intimidating. "Your vacation is over, Corporal Rennick. The galaxy has need of you." "Look, Princess, Your Majesty," she corrected smoothly. "Your Majesty, I'm flattered, really. But I'm nobody special. I fix things, sometimes I break things. I once jury-rigged a hyperdrive using conduit tape and sheer stubbornness. But that doesn't make me genetic material for an army." Kalira's expression softened slightly. "Do you know what makes your DNA so unique?" Ace shrugged. "Excessive caffeine consumption, adaptability, cellular regeneration rates 17% above human norm, neural plasticity that allows for rapid learning, and problem-solving under extreme stress. Most importantly," she paused, studying him with those unnerving eyes, "an almost supernatural ability to survive situations that should be fatal." "I prefer to call it too stubborn to die," Ace muttered. "The Vernari Empire stands at a crossroads," Kalira continued, ignoring his deflection. "We need leadership that can adapt, survive, and think beyond conventional parameters. We need you. Need me to father your children." Ace finished flatly. A faint blue blush colored her cheeks. "The arrangement would be mutually beneficial. You would have status, protection, resources. Your offspring would rule one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy." Ace rubbed his temples. "Yesterday my biggest decision was whether to eat the blue mushrooms or the purple ones. Now you want me to start a dynasty. The alternative," Kalira said quietly, "is watching others claim your genetic legacy for themselves. My cousin, Prince Zoreth, has already sent agents to acquire samples of your DNA. The hegemony wants to create their own alpha cores." Through the windows, Ace could see ships approaching, sleek vessels that bristled with weapons. The reality of his situation began to sink in like a stone through water. "So I'm trapped here either way." "You're protected here," Kalira corrected. The question is whether you'll help us willingly, or whether we'll have to convince you. Ace looked at the approaching ships, then at the beautiful alien princess who held his fate in her hands. Do I at least get to keep talking to Clarence? Royal complications your days into his diplomatic residence at the Vernari Palace. Ace had learned several important facts. Alien coffee was surprisingly good. Princess Kalira's laugh sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. And royal politics made his old military bureaucracy look like a model of efficiency. The Council of Nobles is resistant to the idea, Kalira explained during breakfast in her private dining chamber. She picked at something that looked like crystallized fruit while Ace demolished what he'd learned was called morning grain, basically alien pancakes that tasted like vanilla and sunshine. Resistant to me specifically, or just the general concept of their princess making babies with a random human? Ace asked around a mouthful of food. Both, she admitted. Lord Vexham believes I should choose from established Vernari bloodlines. Lady Nethys thinks we should negotiate a military alliance instead. And my dear cousin Zorith. She paused, her expression darkening. He's been unusually quiet. In my experience, quiet relatives are the dangerous ones. Before Kalira could respond, the chamber doors burst open. A Vernari male strode in, his silver blue skin marked with the golden tattoos that indicated high rank. His hair was jet black, styled in elaborate braids, and his violet eyes held the cold calculation of a predator. Cousin, he said, his voice smooth as poisoned honey, I see you're still entertaining your pet, Prince Zorith. Kalira rose gracefully, her posture shifting to something more regal and dangerous. You're not welcome in my private chambers. Relax. Kalira, I'm not here to cause trouble. Zorith's gaze fixed on Ace with undisguised contempt. I'm here to make our guest an offer. Ace set down his fork and leaned back in his chair. I'm listening. Join me instead. I can offer you something she cannot: freedom. Serve as genetic donor for my house. And you'll have your own fleet, your own worlds to rule. You won't be a kept pet, but a true partner in power. Kalira's hands clenched at her sides. You overstepped, Zorith. Do I, or am I simply offering him a better deal? Zorith smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Tell me, Corporal Rennick, what has my dear cousin promised you? A comfortable cage. Royal treatment as long as you perform your duties. Ace glanced between the two royals. Feeling like a bone between fighting dogs, she promised me protection from people who want to steal my DNA, and I'm offering you the chance to profit from it willingly. Your clones are already out there, winning battles in your name. Why shouldn't you benefit from their success? Because, Kalira interjected, her voice sharp as a blade, you would use him as a breeding stock and discard him when convenient. At least I offer him respect. Respect, Zorith laughed. You've kidnapped him from his chosen exile and presented him with an ultimatum. How is that respect? Ace had heard enough. He stood, and both royals turned to him with surprise. You know what? You're both right, and you're both wrong. He walked to the window, looking out at the alien landscape below. Kalira, you did kidnap me. No matter how nice the accommodations, I'm still a prisoner. And Zorith, you're talking about me like I'm a prize bull at auction. Then what do you want? Kalira asked quietly. Ace turned back to them. I want to meet my clones. Both royals stared at him in shock. That's not advisable, Kalira said. Carefully, the Alpha cores are stationed across the galaxy. Bringing them together could cause complications. What kind of complications? Ace pressed. Zorith's expression had shifted from smugness to something like concern. Neural resonance. The clones share your base neural patterns. Gathering them in one place could create unpredictable effects. You mean they might remember being me? Ace said. It wasn't a question. The memories aren't supposed to transfer, Kalira admitted. But there have been incidents. Clones experiencing flashes of your original experiences. Dreams of places they've never been. Ace felt a chill run down his spine. How many incidents? 17 confirmed cases in the past month, Zorith said. The number is growing. And you didn't think to mention this before? Ace demanded. We were handling the situation, Kalira said defensively. By hiding it from me, Ace's voice rose. Those are my brothers out there, dealing with echoes of my life. And you thought I didn't need to know. They're not your brothers, Zorith said coldly. They're genetic copies. Tools. Ace's hands clenched into fists. Would you say the same if someone made 1,000 copies of you? Silence fell over the chamber. Finally, Kalira spoke. What would you do if we arranged a meeting? I'd figure out what's happening to them, and then I'd decide whether either of you deserves my cooperation. Zorith's expression turned calculating. And if we refuse? Ace smiled, and for the first time since arriving, he felt like himself again. Then I'll find another way. You said it yourself, I'm genetically programmed to be too stubborn to die. Want to test that theory? Asterisk. The neural echo meeting was arranged on neutral station Omega-7, a diplomatic hub floating in the void between 3 stellar territories. Ace stood in the observation deck, watching shuttle after shuttle dock, each carrying one of his clones. The sight should have been surreal, but instead it felt oddly like coming home. Nervous? Kalira asked, joining him at the viewport. She'd traded her flowing robes for practical diplomatic attire, still elegant, but designed for potential quick escapes. Terrified, Ace admitted. What if they hate me? What if seeing me makes whatever's happening to them worse? What if it makes it better? Before he could answer, the first clone entered the observation lounge. Ace's breath caught. It was like looking in a mirror, but this version of himself carried himself with military precision he'd never possessed. The clone's eyes swept the room, cataloging exits and potential threats before settling on Ace. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then the clone smiled, the same lopsided grin Ace made when he was nervous. Well, the clone said, this is weird. Tell me about it, Ace replied. I'm Ace, the original, apparently Alpha Prime. The clone responded, then paused. Though lately I've been having dreams about being called something else. Something simpler. More clones filed in Alpha 7, who kept unconsciously flexing his left shoulder the same way Ace did when it ached from an old injury. Alpha 12, who had the same habit of drumming his fingers when thinking. Alpha 3, whose smile was identical but whose eyes held a weariness that seemed older than his manufactured years. This is remarkable, Dr. Jenthan, the Vernari chief medical officer, murmured as she monitored her instruments. The neural resonance is off the charts. But it's not chaotic, it's harmonizing. What does that mean? Kalira asked. Their brain patterns are synchronizing, not becoming identical, but creating a kind of neural network. They're sharing information on a subconscious level. Ace felt it to a growing awareness of the others, not their thoughts exactly, but their presence, their experiences. Fragments of memories that weren't his own began surfacing. Alpha 7's first successful combat mission. Alpha 3's confusion at waking up in a laboratory. Alpha 12's recurring nightmare about falling through endless stars. You all feel it too, don't you? Ace asked. The clones nodded. Alpha Prime stepped forward. It started about 6 months ago. Dreams of a life we never lived. Memories of people we never met. And lately, he hesitated. Lately what? We've been drawn somewhere. Not physically, but mentally, like there's something calling us home. Alpha Prime's eyes met Ace's. I think it was you. Dr. Jenthan's instruments began beeping urgently. The resonance is increasing exponentially. This is beyond anything we theorized. Is it dangerous? Kalira asked. Unknown. But the quantum entanglement patterns suggest they're accessing shared genetic memories. Experiences encoded at the cellular level that shouldn't be possible to transfer. Ace felt a strange warmth spreading through his mind, like sunlight breaking through clouds. The memories weren't just flowing from him to the clones anymore, they were sharing their experiences with him. He saw battles fought in his name, friends made with his face, moments of triumph and loss that belonged to all of them and none of them. There's something else, Alpha 3 said quietly. Something we've all been seeing in the dreams. A place. A laboratory. The Genesis lab on Europa, Alpha 7 added. Where we were created. But in the dreams, there's something hidden there. Something about the original DNA samples. Ace's blood ran cold. What kind of something? Genetic markers that don't match human baselines, Alpha 12 said. Sequences that look almost Vernari, Alpha Prime finished. The room fell silent. Kalira's face had gone pale. her silver blue skin taking on an almost translucent quality. "That's impossible," Dr. Jenthan whispered. "Humans and Vernari are completely incompatible species. The DNA structures are entirely different." "Unless," Ace said slowly, pieces clicking together in his mind. "They're not as different as everyone thinks." Kalira turned to him, her violet eyes wide with something between fear and wonder. "Your adaptability, your survival rate, the way you can interface with alien technology without training. You think I'm part Vernari?" "I think," she said carefully, "that there's more to your genetic heritage than Earth's scientists realized. The Vernari have been exploring the galaxy for millennia. There are stories, legends of expeditions that never returned, of colonies established and lost. You're suggesting I'm descended from ancient Vernari colonists on Earth. It would explain everything. Why your DNA was so successful for the cloning project. Why the clones are experiencing neural resonance. Why I felt such a strong connection to you from the moment we met." Alpha Prime looked between them. "If that's true, then the Alpha cores aren't just enhanced humans. We're hybrids. And very valuable hybrids," a new voice said from the doorway. "Prince." Zorath entered with a contingent of armed guards, his expression triumphant. "Thank you, cousin, for gathering them all in one convenient location." "Zorath, what are you doing?" Kalira demanded, claiming what should have been mine from the beginning, the original and his copies. "With their combined genetic material, I can create an army that will make the Alpha cores look like a training exercise." The clones moved as one, positioning themselves protectively round Ace and Kalira. The neural resonance flared, and suddenly Ace could feel all of their combat training, their tactical knowledge, their shared determination. "You made one mistake, cousin," Ace said, stepping forward. The clones moved with him in perfect synchronization. "You assumed we'd be helpless." Zorath smiled coldly. "What are you going to do? You're outnumbered and outgunned." Ace grinned, that same lopsided smile, multiplied across 12 faces. "We're going to do what Renniks do best, which is improvise." The genetic revolution's battle for Neutral Station Omega-7 lasted exactly 17 minutes. Ace would have been impressed if he hadn't been too busy trying not to die. The neural resonance had turned the clones into something unprecedented, a dozen individuals who fought like a single organism. Alpha Prime took point with the tactical precision of a career soldier, while Alpha 7 and Alpha 12 flanked Zorath's guards with moves Ace had never learned, but somehow knew. It was like watching a perfectly choreographed dance of destruction. "The escape pods," Kalira shouted over the sound of energy weapons fire. She was pressed against a bulkhead, her royal composure cracking under the stress of combat. "No good," Alpha 3 called back, using his plasma rifle to force two guards into cover. "Zorath's ships are jamming the launch sequences." Ace's mind raced through possibilities, aided by the tactical knowledge bleeding through from his clones. The station's life support could be rerouted to create a diversion. The gravity generators could be overloaded. The communications ray could be turned into a weapon if you knew how to reverse the polarity, and had absolutely no regard for safety protocols. "I have an idea," he announced, "but it's completely insane. Those are usually your best ones." Alpha Prime said, laying down covering fire. "We need to get to the central control hub. I'm going to turn this entire station into a massive signal amplifier." "For what?" Kalira demanded. "To broadcast our neural resonance across the galaxy. If I'm right about the Vernari genetic connection, every Alpha Core's clone is going to feel it, and they're going to come running." Dr. Jenthan, who had been quietly recording everything on her portable instruments, looked up in alarm. The quantum energy required for that kind of transmission could tear the station apart. "Better than letting Zorath turn us into his personal army factory," Ace replied. They fought their way through corridors that seemed to stretch forever, the neural link allowing them to coordinate without speaking. Ace found himself moving with combat skills he'd never possessed, reacting to threats with reflexes borrowed from his clones. It was intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. The central control hub was a sphere of crystalline processors suspended in the heart of the station. Zorath was already there, waiting with the remainder of his forces. "You're too late," he said. gesturing to the console where one of his technicians worked frantically. In approximately 3 minutes, this station's communications ray will send a signal to every military base in the sector, a signal that will activate the dormant genetic triggers we've been quietly implanting in Alpha Core's clones for months. Genetic triggers? Kaylira stepped forward, her voice deadly quiet. Neural control implants, coded to my specific biosignature. Every clone will become my personal soldier, programmed for absolute loyalty. Zorith's smile was predatory, including these ones. Once the signal reaches them, Ace felt the clones tense around him, their shared panic rippling through the neural link. But underneath the fear, he sensed something else, a deeper connection that had nothing to do with artificial implants or genetic manipulation. You made one crucial mistake, Ace said, moving toward the central console. And what's that? You assumed the neural resonance was just a side effect. Ace placed his hands on the crystalline surface, feeling the station's power coursing beneath his fingertips. But it's not, it's evolution. The neural link exploded outward, amplified by the station's communications ray. Ace felt his consciousness expanding, touching minds across the galaxy. Hundreds of Alpha Core's clones suddenly awakening to a connection they'd never understood. But more than that, as the signal spread, it encountered other minds with similar genetic markers, humans scattered across dozens of worlds who carried traces of the same ancient Vernari heritage. The galaxy, it turned out, was full of hybrids who had never known what they were. Impossible. Dr. Genthan breathed, staring at her instruments. The signal is being amplified and retransmitted by compatible genetic patterns. It's creating a network. Zorith's technician looked up from his console in panic. Sir, the control signal isn't working. The clones are rejecting the neural implants. Because, Alpha Prime said, his voice carrying an odd harmonic that Ace had never heard before. We're not just clones anymore. The station shuddered as ships began dropping out of hyperspace, dozens of them, then hundreds, Alpha Core's vessels, but also civilian ships carrying humans who had felt the call and answered it. The hybrid descendants of ancient Vernari colonies, awakening to their true heritage for the first time. Kaylira moved to stand beside Ace, her hand finding his through their connection. He could feel her amazement, her joy, and something deeper, a recognition that went beyond attraction to something like destiny. The old prophecies spoke of this. She whispered, the convergence, when the scattered children of Vernari would reunite and transform both species. Are you saying this was meant to happen? I'm saying, she replied, her violet eyes shining with tears, that maybe some things are bigger than politics or power or even love. Maybe some things are simply inevitable. Zorith raised his weapon toward them, but Alpha 7 was faster. The prince fell with a look of surprise on his face, his schemes crumbling with him. As more ships arrived and the neural network continued to expand, Ace realized that everything had changed. The galaxy would never be the same. The rigid barriers between species were dissolving, replaced by something new and unprecedented. So, he said to Kaylira, where do we go from here? She smiled, and it was like watching the birth of stars, wherever we choose, together. Part 5, The New Dynasty. 6 months later, Ace stood on the observation deck of the newly christened Starship Unity, watching the construction of New Vernari, the first integrated human Vernari colony. The planet below sparkled with bioluminescent cities that grew like living things, a perfect fusion of human engineering and Vernari biotechnology. Still can't believe you convinced them to let us name it that, Kaylira said, joining him at the viewport. She wore the ceremonial robes of the Empress, a title she'd claimed not through birth, but through the democratic will of the new hybrid confederation that had emerged from the convergence. I still can't believe you convinced the council to accept democratic representation, Ace replied, slipping an arm around her waist. Your nobles are adapting surprisingly well to actually having to listen to their constituents. The old ways were ending whether we guided the change or not. Better to shape evolution than be crushed by it. Through their neural link, a permanent connection that had formed during their bonding ceremony, Ace could feel her contentment. The link didn't make them the same person, but it let them share experiences in ways that still amazed him. Through her eyes, he could see the beauty of the growing cities below. Through his, she experienced the simple satisfaction of watching something impossible become real. Incoming transmission from Alpha Station, the ship's AI announced. The voice belonged to Alpha Prime, who had volunteered to serve as the central coordinator for the clone network. Put him through, Ace said. Alpha Prime's image materialized in the center of the observation deck. Status report, original. The integration programs are ahead of schedule on all fronts. The Terran Union has formally recognized the Hybrid Confederation, and we've got 3 more star systems requesting membership this week. Any problems with the neural network? Actually, the opposite. We're seeing unprecedented cooperation between previously isolated communities. It's like everyone suddenly remembered they're part of the same family. Alpha Prime paused. Speaking of which, how are the little ones? Ace grinned, looking down at Kalira's rounded belly. The pregnancy had been a surprise to everyone. Hybrid reproduction was supposed to be impossible, but then, a lot of things that were supposed to be impossible had been happening lately. Healthy and active, Kalira said, her hand moving to rest on her stomach. Dr. Jensen says their neural development is unlike anything she's seen. They're already showing signs of the enhanced connectivity. The next generation is going to make us look primitive, Alpha Prime observed. Are you ready for that? Ace considered the question seriously. The children growing inside Kalira would be something new, not quite human, not quite Venari, but something beyond both. They would inherit not just genetic material, but access to the vast neural network that now connected thousands of minds across the galaxy. I think, he said finally, that the universe has always been bigger than we imagined. We just finally caught up to it. A soft chime indicated another incoming transmission. This one came from Earth, where Ace's old commanding officer, General Morrison, was overseeing the integration of human and hybrid technologies. Rennick. Morrison's gruff voice filled the observation deck. You've got another situation brewing. The hegemony is mobilizing a fleet. They're calling it a genetic purity enforcement action. Ace sighed. Some things never changed. How big a fleet? Big enough to be a problem. They've apparently been working on their own clone army, based on stolen genetic samples from various species. It's not going well for them, meaning their clones are unstable and hostile to everyone, including their creators. The hegemony is using them as expendable shock troops, and they're heading straight for New Venari. Kalira's expression hardened. Then we stop them, without becoming what they are, Ace added. The network gives us an advantage, but only if we use it to protect rather than conquer. Through the neural link, he could feel the response rippling outward, thousands of minds touching his, offering support, sharing strength. The Alpha Core's clones were already mobilizing, but so were the civilian hybrids, the integrated communities, the ordinary people who had found something worth protecting in this new world. They were building. This is what you were afraid of, isn't it? Ace asked Kalira. That we'd just become another conquering force. The fear remains. She admitted. Power corrupts, even power used with good intentions. But I think, she paused, her hand finding his. I think as long as we remember that we're building something rather than destroying it, we'll be all right. The first ships of the defense fleet were already launching from New Venari's orbital platform's sleek vessels that moved with organic grace, crewed by humans and Venari and hybrids working in perfect coordination. Through the neural network, Ace could feel their determination, their hope, their shared commitment to protecting what they'd built. You know, he said to Kalira, when I crashed on that moon 12 years ago, I thought my story was over. And now, he looked out at the fleet, at the growing planet below, at the woman who had become his partner in reshaping the galaxy. Through the neural link, he could feel their unborn children stirring, already connected to the vast network of minds that spanned the stars. Now I think it's just beginning. The Unity turned toward the approaching threat, carrying not just the hopes of 2 species, but the promise of something entirely new. In the observation deck, Ace and Kalira stood together, watching the future unfold among the stars. And somewhere in the depths of space, Clarence the pet rock drifted peacefully on Kepler 4 for to be, probably wondering where his favorite human had gone.